Welcome, my sleepy friend. Tonight, there is nothing to solve, nowhere to rush, and absolutely nothing exciting waiting for us. Instead, we'll quietly wander through an ordinary little village where even the clocks seem too relaxed to hurry. If you're new here, consider subscribing so you can return whenever you need a peaceful story to end your day. Now, take a slow, comfortable breath and allow your shoulders to soften. The village wakes before sunrise, though wakes might be too energetic a word. A pale gray sky hangs above rows of tiny cottages with weathered wooden doors. Thin curls of smoke rise lazily from old chimneys. A sleepy baker quietly prepares simple loaves, while a lonely rooster decides, without much enthusiasm, that morning has arrived. Nothing remarkable happens. The streets remain calm, the air stays cool, and the gentle silence slowly wraps around everything, inviting your mind to become just as still. The baker had already been awake for quite some time, although no one could say exactly when the day truly began. His tiny bakery sat on the corner of the village square, where the wooden floor softly creaked beneath every careful step. He measured flour the same way he had for many years, never rushing, never changing the routine. Outside, the first gentle breeze drifted through the empty street, carrying the comforting smell of fresh bread. If these slow and peaceful stories help you relax, don't forget to subscribe, so you'll always have a quiet place to return before sleep. Across the square, an old cat stretched lazily on a warm stone, and then decided that moving any farther would simply require too much effort. The village remained wonderfully ordinary, and that was exactly how everyone seemed to like it. Not long after sunrise, the village postman began his familiar morning walk. He carried only a small leather bag because there were never very many letters to deliver. He greeted each quiet house with the same gentle smile, even when no one happened to be looking through the windows. The narrow stone path felt unchanged from yesterday, and probably from many years before that. As these calm bedtime journeys are becoming part of your nightly routine, subscribing to the channel is a simple way to make sure the next peaceful story is always waiting for you. Near the old oak tree, a wooden bench sat perfectly still, as if it had been patiently watching slow mornings for generations. A light breeze rustled the leaves, birds sang without hurry, and the peaceful village continued another wonderfully uneventful day. As the morning grew a little brighter, the old gardener unlocked the small wooden gate to the village garden. He carried a worn watering can that had been carefully repaired more than once. Every flower received the same patient attention, one by one, with no reason to hurry. The roses, daisies, and lavender quietly enjoyed the cool morning air, while tiny bees drifted lazily from blossom to blossom. If these peaceful stories help you end your day with a calm mind, consider subscribing so another gentle journey will always be waiting for you tomorrow night. Somewhere in the distance, the church bell rang a slow, familiar note that no one found surprising anymore. The gardener smiled softly, continued watering the last row of flowers, and the sleepy little village settled even deeper into its perfectly ordinary, wonderfully quiet morning. By the time the sun reached a little higher above the rooftops, the village pond looked almost perfectly still. Only the occasional ripple spread across the water when a lazy duck decided to glide from one side to the other. An elderly fisherman sat on the same weathered wooden dock where he had spent countless quiet mornings. He wasn't especially concerned about catching fish. Instead, he simply enjoyed watching the reflections of clouds drift slowly across the pond. If these slow and cozy bedtime stories are helping you relax, remember to subscribe so a new peaceful journey is always waiting whenever bedtime arrives. Nearby, tall reeds swayed gently in the breeze, making a soft whisper that blended with distant birdsong. Time seemed to move more slowly here than anywhere else. The fisherman adjusted his old straw hat, smiled to himself, and remained quietly seated, perfectly content as another calm and uneventful morning passed without a single surprise. As the morning quietly slipped toward noon, the tiny village clock ticked with the same steady rhythm it had followed for decades. No one seemed interested in checking the exact time. The gentle sound was simply another familiar part of the day. An elderly woman slowly swept the front porch of her small cottage, carefully gathering a few dry leaves that had wandered there during the night. A sleepy orange cat watched her from the warm doorstep, but decided that even standing up would require too much energy. If these calm bedtime stories are helping you unwind each evening, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting for you tomorrow. A soft breeze carried the scent of fresh bread and blooming flowers through the quiet lane. Nothing unexpected happened, and nothing needed to. The village continued its slow, peaceful rhythm, inviting every wandering thought to become a little quieter and every tired eyelid a little heavier. By early afternoon, the village had become even quieter than before. Most of the cottages stood with their windows slightly open, allowing the warm breeze to wander gently through each room. Somewhere nearby, an old wooden rocking chair moved back and forth with a slow, familiar creak, though no one seemed to remember who had first placed it there. A sleepy dog rested beneath the shade of a large oak tree, opening one eye only long enough to watch a butterfly drift lazily across the garden. If these peaceful bedtime stories have become part of your evening routine, don't forget to subscribe so another calm adventure is always waiting whenever you need a restful night. Far away, the soft ringing of the church bell echoed once before fading into silence. The clouds floated slowly overhead, and the little village carried on exactly as it always had, peaceful, ordinary, and wonderfully uneventful. The afternoon sun rested gently above the village, warming the old stone paths without making the day feel hurried. Behind one small cottage, an elderly man carefully polished a simple wooden bench that had stood in the same place for many years. He worked slowly, stopping every few moments to admire the quiet garden around him. A pair of sparrows landed nearby, chirped softly for a while, and then flew away without any particular destination. If these relaxing bedtime stories are helping you drift towards sleep, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting for your next quiet evening. Beyond the garden fence, rows of wildflowers moved gently with the breeze, filling the air with a light, comforting scent. Nothing unusual interrupted the afternoon. The village remained calm, the sky stayed clear, and every peaceful moment seemed to stretch just a little longer, inviting your thoughts to slow down and rest. The afternoon slowly drifted toward evening, though the village gave little sign that the day was changing. The small general store welcomed only a few visitors, each arriving without hurry and leaving with a simple smile. The shopkeeper carefully arranged jars of honey, folded cloth bags, and neatly stacked fresh vegetables, exactly as he had done every day for many years. Outside, a gentle breeze carried the faint scent of pine trees and warm earth across the quiet square. If these peaceful sleep stories have become part of your nightly routine, don't forget to subscribe, so another calm and cozy journey will always be waiting for you before bedtime. An old bicycle leaned against a wooden fence, untouched since the morning, while nearby a wind chime softly sang whenever the breeze passed by. Nothing exciting happened, and that was the greatest comfort of all. The sleepy little village continued another wonderfully ordinary day, wrapped in silence, patience, and peaceful simplicity. As the golden afternoon slowly softened into the early hours of evening, Long shadows quietly stretched across the village square. The old blacksmith had already finished his work for the day and gently closed the heavy wooden doors of his tiny workshop. The familiar sound echoed once before fading into the peaceful air. Across the narrow lane, a small family of ducks waddled slowly toward the pond, never appearing to be in any particular hurry. If these gentle bedtime stories are helping you relax after a long day, consider subscribing so another peaceful adventure is always waiting whenever sleep feels far away. The village fountain continued its quiet trickle, just as it had for countless seasons. A cool breeze carried the scent of fresh grass through the empty streets, while the first evening birds settled into the trees. Nothing unexpected disturbed the calm. The little village welcomed another quiet sunset, inviting every tired mind to slow down, grow peaceful sleep. The first evening lanterns were lit, one by one, casting a soft golden glow along the quiet village street. Their warm light reflected gently on the old cobblestones, making the familiar path seem even calmer than before. An elderly woman quietly closed the blue shutters of her cottage, pausing for a moment to watch the peaceful sky fade from pale blue to gentle shades of orange and purple. Somewhere in the distance, a cowbell rang softly as a farmer guided his animals home at an unhurried pace. If these relaxing bedtime stories help you end your day with comfort, don't forget to subscribe so another peaceful journey is always waiting for you tomorrow night. A cool evening breeze carried the scent of lavender through the gardens, while the leaves of the old oak tree whispered quietly overhead. The village asked for nothing more than silence, and in that silence, the day slowly settled into another calm, ordinary, and wonderfully sleepy evening. As twilight deepened, the village began to feel even more still, as if the entire world had gently slowed its breath. Windows glowed softly from within each cottage, where families prepared simple dinners without rush or noise. The faint clinking of plates and the quiet murmur of conversation drifted through the warm evening air. Outside, a lone street lamp flickered on, illuminating the empty road in a calm yellow light. If these soothing sleep stories are helping you unwind tonight, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest. A soft owl call echoed from the nearby woods, blending into the quiet atmosphere without disturbing it. The old stone bridge over the stream reflected the lantern light, shimmering slightly as the water flowed beneath it. Everything in the village felt slow, steady, and deeply peaceful, as though even time itself had decided to rest for a while. Night had now fully arrived, wrapping the village in a soft blanket of darkness, broken only by the gentle glow of scattered lanterns and warm windows. The streets were almost empty, except for the occasional slow footsteps of someone returning home after a long, uneventful day. The air felt cooler now, carrying a calm stillness that made everything seem even quieter than before. If these calming bedtime stories are helping you drift into sleep, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest. Somewhere near the edge of the village, a small stream continued its steady flow, making a soft, rhythmic sound as it passed over smooth stones. A few fireflies appeared above the grass, blinking lazily as they moved through the night air. Nothing disturbed the silence. The sleepy little village rested completely now, embraced by darkness, comfort, and the quiet promise of another uneventful morning to come. The village was now completely quiet, the kind of silence that feels almost physical, like a soft fabric covering every rooftop and pathway. Only the faint glow of lanterns along the main street kept the darkness from becoming absolute. Inside the cottages, most people had already settled into bed, their days finished without any rush or urgency. A distant wind moved slowly through the trees, making the branches sway with a gentle, sleepy rhythm. If these calm bedtime stories are helping you relax tonight, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever sleep feels out of reach. The church clock tower stood still and tall, marking the passing hours without anyone paying attention. A cat slipped quietly across a fence and disappeared into the shadows without a sound. The night continued to stretch forward in its slow, steady way, holding the village in complete stillness as every sound softened and every thought grew lighter. Deep into the night, the village had settled into a silence so complete that even the smallest sounds seemed to hesitate before appearing. The soft creak of an old wooden signboard in the wind was almost the only movement left in the air. Every cottage window was now dark, except for a few faint glows that slowly dimmed as candles burned out, one by one. If these gentle sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another calm and uneventful journey will be waiting for you whenever you return at night. The gravel road through the village lay empty, untouched, as if it had forgotten how busy days once felt. A distant train whistle echoed far beyond the hills, but even that sound felt weak and unimportant in the stillness. The village remained wrapped in deep, peaceful darkness, where nothing changed and nothing needed to, allowing the night to stretch on endlessly in quiet comfort. The night grew even deeper, and the village seemed to drift further away from the world beyond the hills. The rooftops, barely visible under the soft moonlight, looked like calm shapes resting without movement. A thin layer of mist slowly gathered near the ground, moving lazily through the empty streets like a quiet river of air. If these peaceful bedtime stories are helping you fall asleep, consider subscribing so another gentle journey is always waiting whenever you need rest. Somewhere far off, an owl called once again, its voice fading quickly into the stillness. The old bakery chimney no longer released smoke, and the familiar smell of bread had long since disappeared into the night. Even the wind seemed to lose interest in moving too quickly, choosing instead to pass through the village in slow, careful breaths. Everything remained undisturbed, as the sleepy little village continued its long, quiet night without interruption or change. Hours passed gently, though in the village, it was hard to tell whether time was moving at all. The moon shifted slightly across the sky, casting soft silver light over the silent rooftops and empty streets. A lone lantern near the old bridge flickered once, then steadied again, as if it had simply remembered its purpose. If these calm sleep stories are helping you drift away, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey will always be waiting whenever you return at night. The stream beneath the bridge continued its quiet journey, flowing over smooth stones with a sound so soft it almost blended into silence. No footsteps disturbed the roads, no doors opened, and no voices called out. The village remained wrapped in its familiar stillness, where even the passing hours felt gentle and unimportant. Everything rested calmly, as if the entire world had agreed, for just this moment, to slow down and simply exist without effort or change. The village night continued its slow, uninterrupted rhythm, with the moon now sitting higher and brighter above the quiet rooftops. Shadows from chimneys and rooftops stretched softly across the empty lanes, forming calm shapes that never seemed to move. A distant branch tapped lightly against a window, then stopped, as if deciding not to disturb the silence any further. If these soothing bedtime stories are helping you relax, Consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever sleep feels far away. The old village windmill stood still in the distance, its blades unmoving, blending into the dark landscape like a forgotten silhouette. Even the usual night insects seemed quieter than before, their sounds faint and scattered. The air felt cool and steady, holding everything in a gentle stillness. Nothing changed, nothing rushed, and nothing called for attention. The sleepy little village simply rested beneath the moon, lost in its endless, quiet, and comforting night. A soft layer of clouds slowly drifted across the moon, briefly dimming the silver light that covered the village. For a moment, everything became even softer, as if the world had lowered its voice. The rooftops, trees, and empty streets faded into gentle shadows before the moonlight returned again. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax tonight, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest. The old village well stood quietly in the center square, its wooden cover unmoving and untouched. Not a single sound came from within, only the memory of water that had been drawn there countless times during the day. A faint breeze passed through the narrow alleyways, then disappeared without leaving any trace behind. The night remained steady and calm, holding the village in its soft embrace, where nothing hurried, nothing disturbed the silence, and everything simply existed in a quiet, peaceful stillness. The village was now fully settled into the deepest part of the night, where even the idea of movement felt distant and unnecessary. The air was still and cool, carrying only the faintest hint of earth and wood from the sleeping cottages. A single curtain shifted slightly in an upstairs window, then became still again, as if it had quietly decided to rest. If these gentle sleep stories are helping you drift off peacefully, consider subscribing so another calm journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. Far beyond the village edge, the hills stood dark and motionless, blending into the sky without a clear boundary between land and night. The stars above remained steady and quiet, offering no change, only presence. Everything below them followed the same slow rhythm. No new sounds appeared, no new events unfolded, and the sleepy little village continued to rest in perfect, uninterrupted silence, wrapped in comfort and endless calm. The night had now reached a point where even time itself seemed to hesitate. The village, already quiet for hours, felt even more distant and still, as if it had gently slipped away from the rest of the world. The faint glow of the moon outlined the tops of chimneys and rooftops, giving everything a soft, dreamlike shape. If these peaceful sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another calm journey will always be waiting whenever you return at night. A small gust of wind passed through the empty square, briefly stirring a few fallen leaves before leaving everything untouched again. The old wooden benches, the silent fountain, and the narrow stone paths all remained exactly as they were, unchanged and undisturbed. No footsteps echoed, no doors opened, and no lights flickered. The sleepy little village continued to rest beneath the wide night sky, held in a calm stillness that felt endless and deeply comforting. Far into the night, the village felt almost like a memory rather than a living place, quiet enough to imagine, but soft enough to believe. The moonlight slowly shifted again, casting new, gentle angles across the rooftops, without changing the feeling of stillness below. A distant branch creaked once under its own weight, then fell silent, as if it had never made a sound at all. If these calming bedtime stories are helping you drift into sleep, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The narrow lanes between cottages remained empty, their stone paths cool and untouched. Even the wind seemed to pass through without purpose, moving only to keep the silence company rather than break it. No new light appeared, no new motion began, and the sleepy little village stayed wrapped in its deep, unbroken calm, where everything rested and nothing asked to be changed. The night stretched on in its steady, unchanging rhythm, as the village continued to rest beneath the quiet sky. The moon had moved a little further west, but its light still covered the rooftops in the same soft silver glow. A faint mist lingered near the ground again, moving so slowly it almost seemed to stand still. If these gentle sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another calm journey will always be waiting whenever you need rest. The old stone well in the village square remained silent, its shadow gently blending into the surrounding darkness. Not even the usual night insects made much sound now. Everything felt softened, as if the world had lowered its volume even more. The cottages, trees, and empty paths all existed in perfect stillness, unchanged and undisturbed. The sleepy little village continued its long, peaceful night, wrapped in quiet comfort and endless calm, where nothing rushed and everything simply rested. As the night deepened further, the village seemed to drift even closer to complete silence, where every detail became softer and more distant. The rooftops, barely touched by moonlight now, blended gently into the surrounding darkness. A lone window shutter creaked once in the far corner of the village, then stopped as quickly as it began, leaving no trace of disturbance. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax tonight, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The narrow paths between the cottages remained empty, their familiar stones cool and still beneath the quiet sky. A soft cloud slowly passed over the moon again, dimming the light for a moment before it returned just as gently. Nothing new appeared, nothing changed, and the sleepy little village stayed wrapped in its deep, steady calm, where the night continued without interruption and everything quietly rested. The village was now deep in the kind of night where even thoughts feel slower, as if the mind itself is beginning to rest. The moonlight returned fully after the cloud passed, settling again into a soft, familiar glow over the rooftops and empty lanes. A distant owl called once more, but even its voice felt calm and unhurried, blending gently into the silence instead of breaking it. If these peaceful sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another calm journey will always be waiting whenever you return at night. The old bridge over the stream remained still, its wooden rails casting long shadows that barely shifted. Beneath it, the water continued its quiet flow, steady and unchanging, like a slow breath the village had learned to share. Nothing disturbed the peace, nothing demanded attention, and the sleepy little village continued resting beneath the wide night sky, wrapped in endless stillness and comfort. The night in the village had become so calm that even silence felt familiar, like an old friend visiting once again. The rooftops and trees stood motionless under the steady moonlight, their shapes softened by the gentle haze of the late hour. A single leaf drifted down from a tree near the square, landing quietly on the stone path without any sound at all. If these soothing sleep stories are helping you relax tonight, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The air felt cool and still, carrying no urgency, no change, only quiet presence. Even the faint sound of the stream in the distance seemed to fade in and out, as if it too was resting between moments. Nothing new happened, nothing old returned, and the sleepy little village remained wrapped in its deep, uninterrupted calm, where the night continued softly and everything simply existed in peace. The village remained unchanged as the night continued its slow passage, with time feeling less like movement and more like gentle stillness. The moon now hung slightly lower in the sky, but its light remained soft and steady across the quiet rooftops. A faint breeze passed through the empty square, barely touching anything before fading away again into silence. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The old lantern near the bakery flickered once, then held its steady glow, as if nothing had disturbed it at all. The cobblestone paths, the silent cottages, and the sleeping trees all remained perfectly still, holding their quiet shapes in the darkness. No footsteps echoed, no voices stirred, and the sleepy little village continued resting beneath the calm night sky, wrapped in comfort, silence, and endless peaceful quiet. The night grew even softer as it moved forward, with the village sinking deeper into a calm so steady it almost felt like it had always been this way. The moonlight slowly shifted again, creating long, quiet shadows that gently stretched across the empty roads. A distant branch swayed once in the wind, then became completely still, as if it had simply paused in thought. If these gentle sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The stone fountain in the center square remained silent, its water barely visible in the darkness, flowing without sound or urgency. Every cottage, every path, and every tree stood in complete stillness, untouched by time or movement. Nothing interrupted the peace, nothing called for attention, and the sleepy little village continued its endless night, resting quietly beneath the vast sky where everything remained calm and unchanged. As the night moved on, the village felt even more distant from the idea of activity or change. The moonlight, now slightly paler, rested gently over the rooftops, giving everything a soft and quiet outline. A faint rustle passed through the trees near the edge of the village, then faded away without leaving any trace behind. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax tonight, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The narrow alleyways between cottages remained empty and still, their stone surfaces cool under the long hours of night. Even the air itself seemed to pause, holding a calm steadiness that made everything feel lighter and slower. No new sound appeared, no movement broke the silence, and the sleepy little village continued resting under the wide night sky, wrapped in endless quiet and gentle stillness where nothing changed and everything simply remained at peace. The night now felt almost timeless, as if the village had gently stepped outside the usual flow of hours. The moon continued its slow journey across the sky, casting a soft, even glow that touched every rooftop and empty street with quiet familiarity. A single distant chime from the old church bell echoed faintly, though it seemed more like a memory than a sound. If these soothing sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The wind passed through once more, but it carried no urgency, only a gentle presence that briefly stirred the leaves before leaving them still again. The cottages, the square, and the narrow paths remained unchanged, resting in complete calm. Nothing new arrived, nothing moved forward, and the sleepy little village continued its long, peaceful night, held gently in silence, where everything felt soft, slow, and deeply at rest. The village stayed wrapped in the same deep calm as the night continued, with no sign that morning was anywhere close. The moonlight had shifted slightly again, now casting a softer angle across the rooftops, as if it too was becoming tired. A quiet rustle moved through the tall grass near the riverbank, then faded into stillness without disturbing anything else. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The old wooden bridge creaked once under a distant change in temperature, then settled back into silence. No lights appeared in the windows, no doors opened, and no footsteps broke the quiet ground. Everything remained as it was, unchanged and unhurried. The sleepy little village continued resting beneath the wide night sky, where time felt slow, soft, and endless, and where nothing asked to be anything other than peaceful. The night seemed to grow even quieter, as if the village had gently slipped into the deepest layer of sleep. The moonlight, now pale and distant, barely touched the far edges of the rooftops, leaving most of the village in soft shadow. A single leaf drifted slowly across the empty square, carried by a breeze that appeared only for a moment before disappearing again. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The stone walls of the cottages held their quiet warmth from the day, now slowly cooling under the steady night air. No sound rose from inside, no movement disturbed the stillness, and even the smallest details seemed to pause. The sleepy little village remained unchanged, resting beneath the vast, quiet sky, where everything felt distant, soft, and endlessly calm as the night continued without interruption. The village now felt like it was floating in a quiet pause between one moment and the next, where nothing needed to move forward. The moon had shifted further across the sky, its light now thinner and more delicate over the sleeping rooftops. A faint sound, almost imagined, passed through the trees near the hill, then disappeared before it could fully form. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The old stone fountain remained still and dark, its surface barely reflecting any light at all. The air felt even cooler now, carrying a steady calm that settled gently over everything it touched. No changes came, no interruptions followed, and the sleepy little village continued resting under the wide, quiet sky, held in deep silence where time itself seemed to pause, and everything simply remained peacefully still. The night had grown so still that even the idea of movement felt far away, as if the entire village had gently paused in place. The moonlight, now faint and distant, softly outlined the edges of rooftops and chimneys without revealing much detail. A very light breeze passed once through the square, touching nothing long enough to be noticed, then faded away again into silence. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The wooden benches, the empty pathways, and the closed shutters all remained exactly as they had been for hours, unchanged and undisturbed. No sound followed, no light shifted, and no new presence appeared. The sleepy little village continued resting beneath the endless night sky, where everything was slow, soft, and perfectly calm, and where the world itself seemed to breathe in quiet, steady peace. The night deepened into an almost dreamlike stillness, where the village no longer felt separate from the silence, but fully part of it. The moon, now slightly lower again, cast a faint glow that barely reached the far corners of the empty lanes. A distant sound, like a soft shift in the air, moved through the hills and then disappeared before it could be noticed. If these gentle sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The rooftops, trees, and stone paths remained unchanged, holding their quiet forms under the steady sky. Even the wind seemed to forget its direction, passing through without leaving any sign behind. Nothing new unfolded, nothing interrupted the calm, and the sleepy little village continued resting in endless quiet, where time felt soft, slow, and almost completely still. The village now seemed to exist in a quiet in-between state, where night and stillness blended so gently that it was hard to tell where one ended and the other began. The moonlight, thinner now, spread softly across the rooftops like a fading memory of brightness. A very distant rustle moved through the trees at the edge of the hills, then dissolved into silence without ever reaching the village itself. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The empty square, the silent fountain, and the closed cottages remained exactly as they had been for hours, unchanged and resting. No new sound appeared, no motion disturbed the air, and everything stayed softly suspended in calm. The sleepy little village continued its long, gentle night beneath the wide sky, where everything felt slow, weightless, and peacefully still. The night had grown so deep that even shadows seemed to lose their edges, blending softly into the quiet surroundings of the village. The moonlight now felt distant and calm, barely touching the farthest rooftops before fading into darkness again. A faint sound, like wind passing through an empty field, moved across the hills and disappeared without ever reaching the village square. If these soothing sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The narrow paths between cottages remained undisturbed, their stone surfaces cool and silent under the long night. Even the smallest details, window frames, fences, and garden gates, stood perfectly still, as if waiting for nothing at all. No change followed, no sound returned, and the sleepy little village continued resting beneath the endless sky, wrapped in quiet calm, where everything simply existed in soft, unbroken peace. The village remained in its deep, unbroken calm as the night slowly continued, with no sign of anything new beginning. The moonlight had grown even softer, now appearing more like a faint glow resting gently over the rooftops rather than a bright source of light. A distant breeze moved through the upper branches of the trees, but it was so light that even the leaves barely responded. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The empty streets, the silent cottages, and the still garden fences all remained exactly as they were, unchanged and untouched. No footsteps echoed, no doors creaked, and no lights flickered. The sleepy little village continued to rest beneath the vast night sky, where everything felt slow, steady, and deeply peaceful, as if the entire world had quietly agreed to remain still for a while longer. The night had now become even quieter, settling into a deeper layer of stillness, where sounds felt almost impossible to imagine. The faint glow of the moon continued to rest gently over the village, but even that light seemed softer, as if it were slowly fading into the sky itself. A distant branch swayed once, then stopped, returning to complete silence without leaving any trace of movement behind. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The stone paths, wooden fences, and quiet rooftops all remained unchanged, holding their familiar shapes under the endless sky. No wind followed, no sound returned, and nothing new appeared to disturb the calm. The sleepy little village continued resting in perfect stillness, where everything felt slow, light, and endlessly peaceful, as the night stretched on without interruption or end. The village now felt as though it had fully surrendered to the night, with every corner resting in the same deep, steady silence. The moonlight, now very faint, barely outlined the edges of rooftops and trees, blending everything into soft shades of gray and shadow. A distant sound, almost like a memory of wind, passed through the hills and disappeared before it could reach the village. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The empty square, the silent fountain, and the closed cottages remained perfectly still, unchanged by time or movement. No new light appeared, no sound followed, and nothing shifted in the air. The sleepy little village continued to rest beneath the vast night sky, wrapped in endless calm, where everything slowed down and simply existed in quiet, gentle peace. The night had grown so deep that even the faint idea of change felt far away, as if the village had slipped into a long, quiet pause. The moonlight was now only a soft suggestion above the rooftops, blending gently with the darkness rather than standing out from it. A very distant rustle moved through the far hills, but it never reached the village, dissolving quietly into the night before it could become anything more. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The stone walls, wooden doors, and empty lanes all remained exactly as they had been for hours, untouched and still. No new sounds followed, no movement appeared, and the sleepy little village continued resting beneath the vast sky, held in a calm so steady that even time itself seemed to slow and breathe quietly. The village continued to rest in a calm so steady that the night itself felt unbroken and complete. The moonlight had become even more delicate, spreading faintly across the rooftops, like a soft memory of brightness rather than a strong glow. A distant breeze passed over the hills once again, but it never reached the village, leaving everything exactly as it was. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at night. The empty streets, silent cottages, and still trees all remained in their familiar places, unchanged and undisturbed. No footsteps echoed, no doors shifted, and no light flickered in the windows. The sleepy little village continued its long, gentle night beneath the wide sky, where everything felt slow, weightless, and peacefully still, as if the world had quietly settled into its deepest and most comforting rest. The quiet village rested beneath a sky that seemed endless, where countless stars watched over the peaceful rooftops without asking for attention. The moon had nearly reached the western horizon, and its pale light gently faded with every passing moment. The air felt cool and perfectly still, carrying only the faint scent of pine trees and fresh grass from the nearby fields. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax each night, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you return at bedtime. Near the edge of the village, the little stream continued its slow journey over smooth stones, creating a gentle rhythm that blended naturally with the silence. The old windmill stood quietly against the dark sky, its wooden blades completely still. Nothing changed, nothing hurried, and nothing interrupted the peaceful night. The sleepy little village remained wrapped in quiet comfort, patiently waiting for the first gentle signs of dawn. A faint hint of morning slowly began to gather beyond the distant hills, though the village remained peacefully asleep. The stars still filled most of the sky, quietly shining above the silent rooftops, while the moon rested low near the horizon. The cool night air lingered gently between the cottages, carrying the familiar scent of damp earth and wildflowers. If these peaceful bedtime stories are helping you unwind, consider subscribing so another gentle journey is always waiting whenever you need a quiet end to your day. The old stone bridge remained empty, its reflection resting softly on the calm stream below. Not a single window had opened, and no footsteps disturbed the quiet lanes. Even the birds had not yet begun their morning songs. The sleepy little village held on to the final moments of night, enjoying the calm before another slow, ordinary, and wonderfully peaceful day would quietly begin. The first gentle colors of dawn slowly appeared along the eastern horizon, painting the sky with soft shades of pale blue and quiet gold. The stars began to fade one by one, not disappearing all at once, but quietly stepping aside to welcome the morning. The village remained peaceful, with every cottage still resting beneath the cool air of early dawn. If these soothing sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another calm journey is always waiting whenever you need a peaceful night. A tiny bird gave a single sleepy chirp from the top of an old oak tree, then fell silent again, as if deciding it was still too early to greet the day. Thin wisps of mist floated gently above the fields beyond the village, moving so slowly they were almost impossible to notice. Everything remained calm, unhurried, and wonderfully ordinary as a new day quietly prepared to begin. The dawn light grew a little stronger, gently touching the rooftops and slowly revealing the village in soft, waking colors. Shadows that once filled the lanes began to fade, replaced by a calm, early morning glow that felt warm, but still quiet. The air remained cool, carrying the faint freshness of a new day that had not yet fully begun. If these peaceful sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another gentle journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. A few more birds stirred now, giving soft, scattered chirps that slowly filled the distance without breaking the calm. The village still felt slow and unhurried, as if it was not ready to fully wake just yet. Windows remained closed, doors stayed shut, and the familiar silence of night lingered just a little longer before the day could truly take over. The dawn light grew a little stronger, gently touching the rooftops and slowly revealing the village in soft, waking colors. Shadows that once filled the lanes began to fade, replaced by a calm, early morning glow that felt warm, but still quiet. The air remained cool, carrying the faint freshness of a new day that had not yet fully begun. If these peaceful sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another gentle journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. A few more birds stirred now, giving soft, scattered chirps that slowly filled the distance without breaking the calm. The village still felt slow and unhurried, as if it was not ready to fully wake just yet. Windows remained closed, doors stayed shut, and the familiar silence of night lingered just a little longer before the day could truly take over. The morning continued to brighten slowly, but the village still resisted the full arrival of the day, holding on to its peaceful quiet a little longer. Soft golden light now spread across the open fields, gently illuminating the edges of fences and garden paths. The rooftops looked warmer under the growing sunlight, yet everything remained calm and unhurried. If these soothing sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another gentle journey is always waiting whenever you need a quiet night's rest. A few villagers began to stir inside their homes, but there was no rush in their movements, only slow, familiar routines returning gently after a long night. Curtains shifted slightly, kettles began to warm, and faint footsteps could be heard inside the cottages. Still, the village felt peaceful, as if even the morning itself was taking its time, allowing silence and stillness to slowly fade rather than disappear all at once. The village now rested in the soft balance between night and morning, where silence and light seemed to exist together for a brief moment. The sun had not yet fully risen above the hills, but its presence was already felt in the gentle warmth spreading across the rooftops and gardens. A few more birds joined in the morning chorus, their calls still soft and scattered, not yet forming a full song of the day. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. Inside the cottages, simple routines continued, bread being sliced, water being poured, and doors slowly opening after a long, quiet night. Yet nothing felt rushed or loud. Even the beginning of activity remained gentle. The sleepy little village stayed true to its nature, slowly transitioning from deep night into a calm, unhurried morning. The sun finally rose a little higher, bringing a soft, golden light that gently filled the entire village without breaking its calm atmosphere. Shadows shortened slowly across the cobblestone paths, and the rooftops glowed with a warm, peaceful brightness. Even as the day continued to arrive, everything still felt slow and unhurried, as if the village had not fully decided to wake up yet. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. The sound of faint conversation began to appear here and there, but it remained soft and distant, blending naturally with the morning air. Doors opened one by one, revealing simple routines, watering plants, sweeping porches, and preparing breakfast. Nothing felt rushed or loud. The sleepy little village gently embraced the new day, while still holding on to its quiet, peaceful heart. Now the village had fully stepped into morning, yet its calm spirit remained unchanged, as if the night's peace had quietly carried over into the day. The sunlight spread evenly across the streets, giving everything a soft, warm glow that felt comforting rather than bright or harsh. People moved slowly through their routines, greeting each other with gentle nods and quiet smiles instead of hurried words. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. The bakery door opened again, releasing the familiar scent of fresh bread into the morning air, while the old cat returned to its favorite sunny spot on the stone wall. The village square, once silent through the night, now held a light and peaceful energy. Everything felt simple, steady, and calm, as the sleepy little village welcomed another ordinary and quiet day. The morning in the village continued to unfold with the same gentle rhythm, as if nothing had ever needed to change or hurry. The sunlight now felt a little warmer, resting softly on the rooftops, and slowly warming the stone paths below. A few villagers gathered near the small fountain, speaking in quiet voices about simple, everyday things that carried no urgency at all. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. The old baker arranged fresh loaves in the window display, while the smell of warm bread drifted lazily through the square. A light breeze passed through the street, moving small pieces of dust and fallen leaves without disturbing the calm atmosphere. Everything in the village felt steady and familiar as the new day settled in gently, continuing the same quiet, peaceful life that had always been there. The village square slowly became a little more active, but still kept its calm and unhurried feeling, as if time itself preferred to move gently here. A few children walked together along the stone path, their voices soft and distant, blending into the peaceful morning air rather than breaking it. The fountain continued to trickle quietly in the center, its steady sound unchanged from the night before. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. Nearby, the postman once again began his slow rounds, greeting familiar houses with the same quiet patience as always. Nothing felt rushed or loud. Even the movement of people seemed to follow the village's natural rhythm of calm simplicity. The sleepy little village continued its day in the same gentle way it had lived through the night, steady, quiet, and peacefully ordinary. As the late morning settled in, the village continued to move with its soft and steady rhythm, never rushing into anything beyond the present moment. The sunlight now felt fully awake, yet it still carried a gentle warmth that kept everything calm rather than bright or overwhelming. A few birds gathered on the rooftops, occasionally fluttering from one place to another without any sense of urgency. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. Near the edge of the village, the small stream sparkled under the light, flowing slowly over smooth stones that had not changed in years. The old bridge above it stood quietly, watching over the water just as it always had. Life in the village felt simple and unchanging, as if every hour of the day was simply another soft continuation of the same peaceful, familiar story. The late morning slowly deepened into a calm midday, though the village never felt any sudden shift or sharp change. Everything simply continued, as if the day was gently unfolding rather than moving forward quickly. The sunlight rested evenly across the fields and rooftops, creating soft patterns of light and shadow that barely changed as time passed. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. Near the village road, a horse-drawn cart moved slowly along, its wheels turning at an unhurried pace that matched the rest of the surroundings. The driver sat quietly, letting the horse choose its steady rhythm without pressure or hurry. Even the sound of the wheels on the dirt path felt distant and gentle. The sleepy little village remained in its familiar state of calm, where every movement felt soft, every moment felt slow, and nothing ever needed to rush forward. As midday continued, the village felt almost suspended in a quiet routine, where each moment blended softly into the next, without drawing attention to itself. The sunlight now rested a little higher in the sky, but still carried the same gentle warmth that had defined the morning. Shadows shortened slightly, yet even that change felt slow and unimportant. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, Consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. A few villagers paused beneath the shade of trees, enjoying the stillness of the air while speaking in calm, unhurried voices. The sound of distant footsteps on the stone path came and went, never lingering long enough to disturb the peace. Everything in the village continued in its quiet rhythm, where nothing felt urgent and every action seemed to exist simply because it belonged to the gentle flow of an ordinary, peaceful day. The village remained wrapped in its steady midday calm, where even the passing of time felt soft and unnoticeable. The sun continued its slow journey overhead, casting a warm, even light that touched every rooftop, fence, and garden, without creating any sense of heat or rush. A few clouds drifted lazily across the sky, their shapes changing so gradually that it was easy to miss their movement entirely. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. Near the fountain, a small group of villagers stood in quiet conversation, their voices low and relaxed, blending naturally with the surrounding stillness. Nothing in their movements suggested urgency. Every gesture felt simple and unhurried. The sleepy little village continued its peaceful existence, where each hour flowed gently into the next, and the entire day felt like a slow, continuous breath of calm. The village continued its calm midday rhythm, where everything felt settled and familiar, as if it had always been this way and always would be. The sunlight remained steady and gentle, filling the streets and fields with a warm, balanced glow that never felt too bright or too harsh. A light breeze moved through the open square, briefly stirring a few leaves before letting them rest again, exactly where they were. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. The distant sound of a bell from the small church echoed softly once, then faded into the air without drawing attention. People continued their quiet routines, walking, resting, and speaking in low tones that matched the peaceful surroundings. Nothing felt rushed or out of place. The sleepy little village remained in its gentle state of calm, where every moment flowed naturally into the next. As the afternoon slowly approached, the village continued to hold on to its calm and unchanging rhythm, where even the idea of hurry felt distant and unnecessary. The sunlight began to shift slightly, casting longer and softer angles across the streets and open fields. Despite this change, everything still felt peaceful and steady, as if the day preferred to move gently rather than quickly. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. A few villagers rested under shaded porches, watching the slow movement of clouds above without any sense of urgency. The sound of distant birds and faint footsteps blended into a quiet background hum that never disturbed the calm. The sleepy little village remained exactly as it was, soft, simple, and quietly alive, where every passing moment felt like part of a long, gentle, and peaceful breath. The afternoon light slowly began to soften, hinting that the day was gently moving toward its later hours, though nothing in the village felt hurried or aware of time. Shadows stretched a little further across the cobblestone paths, while the warmth of the sun remained steady and comforting. Everything continued in its calm rhythm, as if the village had learned to move in harmony with the quiet flow of the day. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. A few villagers slowly made their way back toward their homes, their movements unhurried and relaxed, carrying the same peaceful energy that filled the air. The sound of soft conversation drifted between houses, then faded again into silence. The sleepy little village remained unchanged in spirit, gentle, steady, and quietly alive, where every hour passed like a soft whisper of time. As the day continued its slow and gentle passage, the village remained wrapped in the same peaceful atmosphere that had carried it from night into morning and now through the afternoon. The sunlight, still warm and soft, rested quietly over the rooftops and open fields, giving everything a calm and familiar glow. Nothing in the village felt rushed or forced. Every movement, every sound, and every moment flowed naturally into the next. If these calming sleep stories are helping you relax, consider subscribing so another peaceful journey is always waiting whenever you need rest at night. The streets gradually grew quieter again as people returned indoors, and the village slowly settled back into stillness. The sleepy little village, unchanged at its heart, continued to exist in its simple rhythm, steady, calm, and endlessly peaceful, where every ending felt like just another gentle beginning. And now, as our quiet journey through this sleepy little village comes to an end, everything slowly settles back into stillness. The soft sounds of the day fade away, just like distant footsteps disappearing down an empty road. There is nothing left to do now, nowhere left to go, and nothing that needs your attention anymore. If you're still awake, you can simply let your thoughts drift, lighter and slower, until sleep gently takes over on its own. Let the calm of this village stay with you as you close your eyes. Thank you for staying with this story. If you enjoyed this peaceful sleep journey, you can subscribe for more calming stories like this one. And now, just rest.